Alien and UFO encounter reports come in all shapes and sizes, ranging from the slightly odd to the downright utterly bizarre. It is a category of experiences that invites the strange, yet some of these are weirder than others, and some of the strangest of all are when these alien entities turn out to be anything but friendly. A bizarre series of frightening events played out in Abbiate-Quazzone, Varese, Italy, on April 24th, 1950. It was around 10 p.m. that evening when a local mechanic by the name of Bruno Facchini, 40, stepped out after a violent thunderstorm to go relieve himself at an outdoor outhouse on his property. After he finished his business, he stopped to have a cigarette, and that was when he noticed a series of several strange, odd flashing lights, which at the time he at first thought were being generated by the receding storm. Seeing as the lights seemed to be emanating from a nearby field, he decided to investigate, as he was starting to get the impression that they were coming from a nearby row of power lines. And so he was thinking there might be a danger with a fallen power line. This is where things would take a sharp turn into the weird, and he would tell the Italian UFO researcher Antonio Giudici of what happened next. It was still a little farther. I decided to go there. Then I saw there a huge dark shape, like a ball with a flattened top. In the middle of the shape there was a small ladder, lightened by a green light. Almost immediately I understood that the light came from some sort of lamp, handled by a standing man who seemed to be engaged in welding. He wore something like a diving suit and a mask. Next to a power line pole, I saw a huge, round shape. From the illuminated disc, a ladder came down. A door opened. I could see inside the UFO because a light diffused inside. There was another ladder leading to a higher level of the craft. On the walls, there were bottles connected together in rows, and between them I could notice that there were gauges and tubes. Driven by curiosity, I went closer, and I saw two other people with the same clothing moving slowly around the craft. I guessed that their diving suit was heavy and slowed down their movements. The craft, lighted by the welding tool, cast metallic reflections back. There were apparently enough sparks flying everywhere that the interior of the craft was eerily lit by the flickering light, and he could see numerous dials and cylinders within. As he was taking this all in and trying to process it, he became aware of a strange, buzzing noise, like a giant beehive, and a sensation of warm air all around him. He noticed that all of the mysterious figures were similarly dressed in grayish one-piece tight-fitting clothes and were wearing helmets, but their faces were concealed behind masks, from the front of which emerged one flexible pipe, which reminded him of a breathing tube. Even at this point, his mind was struggling for rational answers, with him surmising that it was a downed aircraft with mechanics trying to undergo repairs. But this would soon turn out not to be the case, as they moved in an oddly disjointed fashion and spoke amongst each other with an otherworldly guttural language. He continues, "I offered to help, but the only answer I received were some guttural sounds that were not understandable. I wondered what their intentions were. I had the feeling they were inviting me aboard. Suddenly I heard an uproar, like the amplified buzz of a bee or a huge power generator. I saw another ladder in the interior of the craft, and all around tubes, cylinders, and gauges. I understood that this was not a plane, and I was seized by panic. I started to run away. I was not so close anymore when I turned my head back. I saw one of the men raise some sort of apparatus he carried at his side and beam a ray of light in my direction. I started to run again, but immediately I felt as if I was cut in two parts by some cutting tool. or by a jet of compressed air, and I fell flat. After a while, I saw 4 beings around the disc. 2 were beside the ladder. A third one seemed to attempt to weld together a group of tubes. Exactly this operation produced the strange flashing that had attracted my attention. Thinking that this was some test of a secret prototype, I approached them asking if they had need for help. The beings started to make strange gestures and emitted guttural sounds, something like "grr, grr." At that moment, the craft was started, and it was only then that I understood that they were not human beings. Seized by panic, I started to run away. While I ran, I had a glimpse at them, and I saw that one of those individuals was directing something at me.